afternoon, everyone, and thank you for attending. We're ready to get started with today's Board Docs webinar featuring New Jersey Board Docs subscriber, Paramus Public School District. The webinar will last 45 minutes and will conclude by 11:45 a.m. We encourage you to send your questions into the Q&A box, and we will address those during the webinar. The session will be recorded, and a link to the recording along with the slides will be emailed after the webinar. We also ask that you mute your lines to minimize the background noise. Today, we're delighted to have a great lineup of speakers for you, including Stephen C., Business Administrator and Board Secretary for the Board Paramus Public Schools, Lou Schiminti, New Jersey School Board Association Product and Services Specialist, and moderating today we have Dottie Schindlinger, VP of Governance and Technology. Welcome everyone, and Dottie, I'm going to turn the webinar over to you.
Good morning, everybody. My apologies for that little technical snafu we had there at the beginning. Amanda, hopefully you can hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that, everybody. We had just a little bit of a technical glitch there with the audio at the beginning. So thank you so much, and welcome to our webinar today. I'm delighted to be here with my two co-presenters, Stephen Sia from the Paramus Public Schools and Lou Schiminti from the New Jersey School Board Association. So thank you so much for joining us. We're going to start with Steve, and Steve, I'm going to turn it over to you to give just a little bit of a high-level overview of Paramus Public School District, and then we'll take some time and take a look at how you're using the technology to communicate with your board. So Steve, are you there with us? Steve, you might still have your line muted. So I think this is
I had mine off, but I think everyone was. So I am here and glad to be with you. So just a little overview about Paramus. We're located in the center of Bergen County. We service grades pre-K to 12. We have about 3,800 students, a little over 3,800 students in 8 schools. We have 5 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, and a high school. I think the webinar includes our mission statement, and we've been using Board Docs since January 2017. So we're in the middle of our second year, and I wanted to go over a few of the things that brought us to start up with Board Docs and how we use it to try to improve our efficiency and transparency. So if you want to go to the next slide, I could start you off with some of the things that we use Board Docs for. So one thing that I think might be helpful is to give you an idea of how we used to do our agendas before we use Board Docs. And probably like most people who, most school districts, it was centrally located in my office, which is the board secretary's office. So my secretary used to coordinate the production of the board packets that used to go to the board on the Friday before the board meeting. We have our board meetings on Monday. And that involved getting agenda motions from different departments, the curriculum department, buildings and grounds, the business office, the superintendent's office, gathering all that information, all the supporting documentation, and putting together this very long countertop with all these binders and making copies of all the supporting documentation, the agenda, and packing them up, giving them to our messenger, usually with some kind of mad scramble at the end of the late afternoon on Friday, getting them to the messenger to distribute to all our board members. Well, with Board Docs, that process has been decentralized, and we've relinquished some control to individuals in different departments so that they can be responsible for their own sections. So now, for example, our educational policy agenda report is done through the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum's office. So agenda motions that that they want to see get approved by the board or go before the board for action, they put in themselves. There's a big change from what we had done in the past. We think that there's more accountability there and they have more responsibility. So, we've embraced that change. But, for those people who are, considering making a switch, that's something that you have to be, that you could do, and it's, I think, a more efficient way of handling it, but you don't have to. You could still have all the motions go through, the business office or the board secretary's office. So that the choice is yours, but, we found that the built-in sort of approval process that Board Docs has, allows there to be reviews every step of the way, and then the business office my office has the final say as to what gets on the agenda and what doesn't. So there's some checks and balances there. So for those of you that might have requisition system where you have approvals, various approvals before a purchase order gets established, it's a similar type of process in Board Docs where someone can originate a motion, their supervisor can review and approve it, and then it goes to the business office for final acceptance and inclusion into the agenda. So, very different ways of handling it, but, we found that allowing people to put their own motions in gives them more accountability, and we're not chasing them down, in the waning hours of Friday afternoon in order to get their documentation on the agenda. So we do track things pretty closely, and one of the things that, because we've been doing Board Docs for more than a year, we now can reference prior agendas. We used to do this in the past, when we were preparing the month's agenda, we would look at last year for the same month and months before and after, and use that to inform what we'd include on the agenda for the upcoming meeting. With Board Docs, it's really helpful where we can go back to the prior year for the agenda in the same month and essentially duplicate that agenda for the upcoming meeting. And if most of those motions are the same, then you don't have to retype them, re-enter them. They're there for you. So that's helpful in making the the agenda preparation more efficient and effective. But not every meeting is the same as the meeting the year before. So you have full flexibility and functionality to make modifications, to eliminate motions and add additional motions. And one of the features we like about Board Docs is the being able to access motions from prior meetings and duplicate those into future meetings. So that's helped a lot in speeding the production of the agenda to get for the new a new meeting that we're preparing. There's a search function that I think I'll show you later, how you could search the available agendas and minutes and attachments to locate the motions that might be used for, if you want to prepare a new motion for new action, and you want to tailor it from something that already exists and not have to reinvent the wheel, you could go back, search for an item, select it, and then duplicate it into the upcoming meeting. And later on, I'll show you how we do that in Paramus and give you a little overview of it. Next item I'll go through is some transparency. So we build the agenda you know, now weeks before, when the motion's ready. So instead of, collating things, the week before the meeting, if something comes up, we could just put it on the next meeting, or we know we have to do something in a couple of months. We could create the agenda for that month and start adding motions to it. And what's nice is that people who have access to the to board docs can then see those motions as they get built and added to the agenda. There's transparency on different levels. First level is the people internally that have access to it, but also our board president. So, the board president should be responsible or included as part of the agenda development process, and we've provided access to the board president to allow them to kind of see the agenda as it gets developed. So that kind of resolves one of the issues of including the board into the process, without scheduling a separate meeting to have them come in and review what's on the agenda. So we found that to be helpful. Also on the transparency side, as you'll see when I show you our site, we use board docs to distribute committee agendas. So we have committee meetings the week prior to the board meeting, where we review items that will be considered on the agenda. And so we share those committee agendas with the full board, the week before the board meeting. We include our board calendar there. There's a board update that the superintendent adds every week to give the board an update on what's going on in the district. And those are mechanisms that we use through board docs to share with all the board members what's going on, so they don't feel that a committee has the information and the other board members who are not on that committee don't know what's going on in that individual committee. So there's really no guesswork. All the board members can see the committee agenda. Then the committee minutes get posted on the board agenda. So they have input into the committee, and then they could see what the committee did from the minutes. So, no one's feeling like they're coming into the meeting without having the opportunity to see what's gone on the committee level before the action is taken at the board level. And the last thing I'll indicate on this slide is our agenda planning process. So I think I might have mentioned that prior to the week prior to the board meeting, we sit down with me, the board secretary, my secretary, the assistant superintendent, the superintendent. We sit down and we review what's on the agenda and make modifications, add and subtract based on the input from different people. So we have a committee meetings, and when we sit down in that agenda planning meeting, we use Chromebooks. We use Chromebooks for the full meeting. We've purchased Chromebooks for the board, so they're out, and the board follows the meeting on their Chromebook. But we also, at the agenda planning stage, we will access board docs and go through the agenda on board docs, rather than what we've done in the past, which is type up an abbreviated agenda and review the actions that we had planned for the meeting. So we're essentially killing two birds with one stone. We develop the board docs agenda, and we use that in the state that it is a week before to go through it with the superintendent, assistant superintendent, and and identify the various agenda items. It's also a good opportunity for us then to determine what presentations are going to go on at the meeting, what kind of recognitions, you know, the size of the audience that we expect to get based on the agenda, and make modifications to what we're planning for the meeting at that point. And I mentioned that we use Chromebooks at the board meeting, and I originally thought that the technological aspect of the meeting was going to be a greater burden on me, and there is, I won't sugarcoat it. There is more technology that has to be included in your board meeting. We could get into a little bit more detail about that later if people are interested. But we use Chromebooks. That's gone very smoothly. But the Chromebooks have to be set up. They have to be closed down at the end of the meeting, and some of our board members need a little bit more hand-holding than others in terms of getting them onto the system and addressing any issues that they may have. But I think generally speaking, that's gone a bit more smoothly than I thought it would. And the Board Docs technical support has been there in the event that I've had some issues. They're available, really all night long as you go through your board meeting to make sure that any issues that you have are resolved quickly and doesn't interfere with the board. One other thing that I'll add is with regard to some of the savings. This slide's about efficiency, and one of the things that we've been able to reduce significantly is the time our messengers need to be used to distribute board documentation and packets and information. So very rarely do we have our messenger take anything around to the board members for any agenda, either board meeting agendas or committee agendas. And that's saved us some time and certainly overtime because generally speaking, we were always waiting for something to come in Friday night, and we'd have to hold the messenger until everything was available, and then they'd be doing their distribution after hours, and so this really avoids all of that kind of coordination. So yep.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say thank you so much. I just wanted to remind folks that we do have the ability to take questions. So if you've got questions for Steve as he goes through some of the things that they've experienced, and we will be also showing the software here in just a moment, please make sure to send your questions into the GoToWebinar control panel. You just go to the question box, type in your question, and I'll be able to pose that to our two panelists. I did get one question, Steve, that we wanted to ask, which was, what was the initial training like? And in particular, what was the training like for, any of the school board members or committee members that maybe had a little bit less comfort with technology? I wonder if you could address that before we transition over to Lou.
Sure. Well, a couple of things with regard to the training. So there were two primary levels of training. The first was for the people entering information directly into the board docs, creating the agendas, providing information into the library, etc. The people who were really running the thing. And then the second piece was a meeting with the board of education members, and board docs trained both groups. So we tried to couple them up together. When they came in, they sat down with me, my secretary, and some other people who had input into the agenda process, agenda development and planning process, and just took us through the setup of users, functionality, how to create templates, how to use those templates to create a board meeting, and that I think that went pretty well. It's very intuitive, and a lot of it is fairly straightforward. And then after they got done, and if we needed additional information, the technical support was always there to kind of take us through the process. And then they met with the Board of Education members and took them through how to access the system, maneuver, take a look at attachments, how to read the agenda item, the motions, the different aspects of it with the attachments that might be associated with that motion. And even though we had people who were not completely tech savvy, they were able to manage through. Some people needed a mouse, some people needed a little bit more instruction, but generally speaking, we've in short order they kind of got used to the new protocol. So I do print out some agendas for the public, but the board members follow along with the agenda online, directly from their Chromebook.
That's great. So, and just one follow-up question, Steve, that we just got in from a member of our audience about whether or not board members are able to make red line comments in a document prior or during the meeting to record questions or notes. Do you want to address that a little bit?
Well, I think they're able to take their own notes, but we don't use that tremendously, so I don't have a lot of experience with it. The other aspect of the training that I do want to comment on is the training for me to run the meeting at the time when we're actually conducting the meeting. So recording the votes, who made the motion, who seconded it, the taking notes, and things along those lines. So I got some specific training on that, how to set up what Board Docs refers to as the scoreboard. So the scoreboard projects I set it up so it projects on a separate laptop the agenda motions, so that the public can see on a separate screen where we are in the agenda, and then when the vote is taken, it projects the vote as well. So I think the training piece has been good, but it's a different way of doing business. So it took some people a little time to kind of get oriented, but the transition was smoother than I had expected.
That's great, thank you. Well, let's have you talk just really briefly, and then let's have you transition over to actually do the walkthrough of the site so that we can then make sure we have enough time for Lou to talk a bit about the policy side. So do you want to switch? I think you've actually addressed a number of these things that that are included in your system. Do you want to maybe switch over to show the system now, or do you want to kind of go through some of these items before we do that?
Yeah, let's go through the system, and I could cover some of these things as we go through.
That's perfect. Okay, I'm going to give you control over the screen. So let me make you the presenter, and hopefully you'll then be able to share your screen with us. Perfect. We can see it.
All right, great. And you just have the one screen with the Board Docs screen?
Correct.
All right, great. So let me take you through a couple of things here. Let's go first to the agendas. So there are various meetings that we have already published. So all of 2017 and the meetings as of in 2018. So if I just go to one of these meetings, we're coming up on our May meeting that we use to reappoint staff, and we did that on May 8th last year, and we have our meeting on May 7th this year. I could simply right-click on this and then duplicate, and I could duplicate this this agenda, rename it May 7th and then make modifications to it. So that's a significant savings in time to be able to just take what we did last year and replicate it. If we have a motion that we know we've done in the past, but we want to find it and then replicate it in the upcoming agenda, we can go to the search feature, and I just did a quick search earlier for award if I want to see what's been awarded, and we have various awards for different projects here. I'll just go into this Westbrook bathroom renovation. This gives you a summary of what that motion looked like, and then I can navigate to that section and to that motion. So Board Docs brings you right to that motion, and from here, this is the motion that we were just referencing. You could again right-click on that and duplicate that motion and duplicate it into your agenda, your upcoming agenda. You make some modifications. Maybe you'll change the vendor, the bid opening date. You make those changes, and pretty much good to go. So that's a tremendous time savings, and the search feature is a significant time saver for us locating things that have happened in the past. One thing that I will stress is that any attachment, you see this attachment here in executive content, that means that the board members can see it, but the members of the public can't see it, and the administrators can't see that. But if we go into that, these attachments need to be done in a searchable PDF. I mean, it doesn't need to be done, but if you want the ability to search those attachments, which I think you would, then it has to be in a searchable PDF format. You can scan documents and add them to Board Docs in a PDF format, but if it's not searchable, then those documents, will be less helpful for you in the future if you want to try to find some information that's contained within that document in the future. The other thing I'll go through just quickly, and I mentioned it in the slide, is the library. So we've used the library, and I'm just going to go through to general. We've used the library for some for a number of things. One, to give board members access to information they don't readily have access to, such as the contracts. So we take our contracts and employment contracts and we post them all here. So if somebody wants to be able to access one of our contracts, it's right here on the Board Docs page. I talked about committee meetings. So we have all our committee agendas. So here are our committees. Where it's starred, it means it's been featured. But we could go into the committees and you could see all the prior committee agendas that we've developed. And so board members have easy access to not only the upcoming committee agenda, but past committee agendas. And finally, there are some areas we use Board Docs for where we used to use our website. It's a little easier to post, for example, our financial reports. So in the past, we used to post those board secretary reports, the audits, different budgets. We used to post those on our website. Now, the user-friendly budget is on our website, but we also have prior years financial reports and audits posted here so that under public comment, so that members of the public can see it. And that has a secondary purpose, and that is to direct people to our Board Docs so they're familiar with it. They get more accustomed to going there for meeting agendas and meeting minutes. So I know we're running short on time, so I want to just pitch it over to you.
Steve, I do have one quick question that came in. Just wanted to ask, so let's say that you had something that was in executive content, closed session is over, you want to move that information into the public area so that it can be made visible to the public. Is that something that is fairly easy to do? And just wondered if that would be something that you could show.
Sure. Very, very easy. So we could go to a a prior agenda and in view, and let's take well, policy might be a bad example because once it gets approved, it'll go into our policy section. But let's just take the financial report here, and if we edit. Now it warned you because this meeting has passed, so it allows you to make the change. But since the meeting has passed, it just gives you a little warning that that this is a prior meeting, and you could actually compress this so it's easy to transfer a file, and you could take it and just drop it. So drop and drag, and then save it. Gives you a little notice. Do you want this to be sent to all the board members? So when you have a board meeting and you make a change after the board meeting's been published, it will ask you whether you want to give a notification to the board or those people who are have executive rights and would have access to it. And depending on the nature of the change, you may or may not want to give notification. We try not to inundate the board with notification if it's a minor thing. Let's say there was a typo or something and you cleaned it up. You're not going to send them a notification that it was changed. But if you added a motion, for example, after the agenda has been published, then you would definitely want to send a notification to the various board members. And I'm gonna cancel this so it doesn't get saved. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. Steve, this was really helpful. What I'd like to do now, since we have about 10 minutes left in our session, is I want to transition over to Lou Scamenti. And Lou, I'm going to give you control over the screen. So I'm going to make you our presenter. And then you could talk a little bit about some of the policy services that NJSBA makes available and how you are using the system to provide that information to your members. And Lou, make sure that your phone line is unmuted because we're not hearing you just yet. Lou, are you able to hear us? Let's see if I can unmute him. Okay, it looks like Lou's line is still muted, so hopefully Lou can hear us. Lou, are you there?
Now I am. I'm there. It wasn't letting me mute because you
There you go.
Muted. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, sorry about that. There you go. Okay.
All right. I'm going to talk to you real quick about policy tab. This is our online policy and publication services, a maintenance and publication service, which you're seeing now. But it's the same as the policy tab that Steve had on his Board Docs, on Board Docs Lite and on Board Docs Pro. It works the same. With this feature here, you still have the 3 levels. You have the publisher or editor that can make changes to your policies. You have the administration who can kind of see the back door, to see everything that I'm going to show you now, but can't make changes to anything. And then you have the public field. So as you see, this front here is totally customizable, just like the front pages, the welcome pages on the Board Docs. So if you click on the policy tab, you're going to see some stuff here. You're going to see active policies, draft policies, and retired policies. That is basically all you're going to see if you have the Board Docs LT version. With the Board Docs online publication and policy maintenance, we give you all the rest of our policies, alerts, and resource. And with the policy Board Docs Pro, we give you our products alerts, policies alerts, and resources. It is also available on the LT, but at a fee. I'm going to go through just what's here first. With this, you have all the policy alerts going back to 2018. As you can see, when you click on it, you'll have the policy alerts. Here they're all in clean and marked up versions in Board Docs itself. It gives you an explanation of why we changed the policy, and if you need them in Word, they're also here in Word. I'm just going to run through here. We have a newsletter each month that we send out. The Comprehensive Equity Plan and QSAC is kind of like a crosswalk. It just shows you where our policies are compared to where they are in the plan. Have a list of mandated training list of everything that's mandated training for your staff and for the boards. It also accompanies the statute or code that makes it a requirement. We have some tutorial videos in case you forgot how to do anything within the system. You can look at a short video and kind of figure it out. But also what's great about this is it's all part of Board Docs, and they have 24 hours, 7 days a week support. So you can call them up anytime. Your public, your board, your staff, anybody can call them up and get in touch with the support staff there. We have a clearinghouse of some sample regulations, not sample regulations, but sample exhibits, forms, some good tools to set policy by. Legal links, you have all statutes, not just 18A, and all the codes, not just 6A. And then the critical policies, you click on that. We have our sample policies there, some required regulations, and some sample discretionary policies and regulations. So some good tools there. But let me get back to this. Your active policies. Your active policies, anything that's active, your public can see. And the beauty with this system here is it's not just for your policy manual. You have the ability to create as many manuals as you want. There's a drop-down tab, and you can only see we have one manual here now, but I can show you in a couple minutes that you can add other ones. You can put in, if you want to have a sample, a separate regulation manual, you can put all your regulations in one manual. You want to have your student handbook in there. You want to have your curriculum guide. You can put whatever you want in this system, and it'll keep track of all of it. And the beauty of it is, like Steve showed you before, you have the search button that you can search all your policies and all your regulations. Now, if you had your student handbook in here, if you had a curriculum guide in here, if you had your regulations in here, it would be separate tabs, and you can just click on all of those tabs, and it will search everything. So if you're looking for discipline, it's going to search your policies, it's going to search your handbooks, it's going to search everything. And this one here is what they call the meta search. You can search the over 2,000 districts across the United States that are using Board Docs. You search all of their manuals and all their agendas. So getting back to this, if you have your policies and you click on your policy, and you'll see all the policy language. If it quotes the statute or codes, it's going to have links to it. You just click on the links, you can put all that there, and it's going to take you right to the statute or code. If for some reason you have to either make a change of this through an update, or if the district wants to make an update to it, it's just like it is in Board Docs. You right click on it, you'll see duplicate, and then it'll duplicate it right back into your draft manuals. So while it's in draft manual, only your administration and whoever you decide to give access to, your board members, your support staff, your principals, some administration, you're unlimited of who you can give access to the back door. And that's totally up to the district of who they want to do that for. So once you have it in your draft folder, now you can click on this little button here, and you can, okay, here we go. You can make the changes. Like I said before, you have your books. You can take away copy of. This little section here, active and retired. We'll get into that in a second. Are have to be in there. You control whatever you want here. So you can mark this as first reading, change the date to whatever the date is, today's date, open this up, make any changes you want within here. They have track changes that your board can easily see, or your administration can easily see what's being changed, what's being taken out. And then once you save it, it's in here, and then you can just notify the board that there's the policies in there for them to review. You don't have to send it out to anybody. They don't have to wait till the next meeting. They can review it, and everything's right there. If you do have the policies, alerts, and resources tool, whenever we update a policy, it automatically emails everybody in the board, your administration, anybody else that you want us to email, letting you know that we've updated a policy. Once your policy is complete, what you do is you would just go back to your old policy, your original policy, and then mark that as retired. And then once you mark it as retired, it's going to go and keep a completely different retired policy manual for you. So what's nice about this is every time you update a policy, you're retiring the original policy and then activating the draft policy that the board just approved. Your retired policies is going to keep a catalog of all the policies you retired. And what's important about that is if something happens within the district and you are sued for something that happened 2 years ago on an old policy, you need to produce that old policy, and it's here. And I guess the last thing I just wanted to show you is if you wanted to create a new policy, you create a new policy, and it's, remember I told you you can change whatever book you want, you can create a new one. You can create a regulation manual, you can create a curriculum or student handbook, and then go ahead, you can copy and paste your whatever content you want into the text here, and then when you save it, it's automatically saved. That's basically it for the policy, kind of going through it real quick. If you want more information about either the online policy, maintenance, and publication service, give us a call and we can do a demo that's more detailed. And the same with the board docs, Lite and Pro. If you want to get more detailed, we can do that later. So
great.
That's it. Is there any questions, concerns?
Yeah, Lou, thank you so much. This is really super helpful. We have just about a minute left in our time together, so I do want to just ask one final question. By the way, this is so incredible. I mean, in both cases, I think you've shown ways that you're using the system to really, save quite a bit of time and quite a bit of work and workload. So I guess I just want to ask if, Steve and Lou, if people wanted to connect with you offline, are you comfortable with that if they just reach out to you via email and ask you some questions? I just wanted to make sure people knew how to reach out to you, and if there's anything in particular that you'd like to be able to address with folks. Lou, if you want to go first, and then Steve, I'll ask you the same question.
Sure. If anybody has any questions about any of the board doc products, whether it be the LT, the Pro, the policy manual, maintenance, and publication service. I am the products and service specialist here, so I kind of handle those products, but some other partnerships. So you give me a call if you have any questions at all, and I can either get a demo set up for you, or I can answer whatever questions you have.
And
thank you.
Yeah, for my part, if anybody is interested and wants to get some additional feedback on how we're using it and our experience, I'd be happy to entertain any kind of questions.
Perfect. Well, I just want to say thank you both so much. I thought this was incredibly helpful. I thank you both taking the time to share with us a little bit about the sites that you're using with board docs and to answer people's questions. And I would also say thank you to all those who attended the session today. We did record the session, so we will be providing a follow-up email with the link to the recording, as well as the slides and other information for those that weren't able to join us today. And I just want to say thank you again so much, and I hope everybody has a great day. I hope this was helpful. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.